For anyone who thinks the offseason is boring, well, you haven't been paying attention to the National Football League over the last, umpteen years, and you especially haven't been following the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is another edition of Mike Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, coming at you from the PSL studios up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. This broadcast is presented by Beaver County Auto and SteelersNow.com. I am your host, Mike Asti. There you go. You can follow me and find me at MikeOsti11 on Twitter. And for this edition of Mike Drop, this Radio Gold broadcast, thanks to Beaver County Auto and SteelersNow.com, I'm here to tell you why, and it's going on, the Pittsburgh Steelers players, especially the leadership, the leaders of the team, they're the ones responsible for changing the culture. You can criticize them all you want, but at this point, the past doesn't matter, and the Steelers' leadership are the ones responsible for changing the culture and need to do it much more than head coach Mike Tomlin. Now, we've been covering this pretty well. We've been exhausting this recently on SteelersNow.com, on the site, as we're really full-fledged off-season. I covered the draft. We had our draft show at Walnut Grill in Robinson. Want to once again thank them for having us, and we'll be back before the season, I'm sure. Rookie mini camps, now OTAs, full-fledged OTAs. We're there, and we have the coverage on the YouTube channel, on PSL, on Pittsburgh Sports Live there, which, of course, you can remember to, where is it? There you go. Click subscribe. Make sure to click subscribe there on the YouTube channel. Make it easier for us to get the content to you, Steelers Nation, and the rest of the Pittsburgh sports fandom universe. But right now, it's especially full-fledged Steelers coverage. It's full-fledged off-season before getting to training camp. It's the summer, but it's full-fledged Steelers off-season, and that's tons of coverage, even though maybe years ago it would have been a bit of a lull. And Antonio Brown, he's gone. He's missing OTAs. He's gone. Le'Veon Bell's gone. He's in New York, but there's already questions with Adam Gase now taking over and getting his imprint more on that franchise, that maybe Bell's not really welcome there. They signed him to a deal. He took less money than what the Steelers initially offered him, and I go back through the Mike Drop channel. I detailed it, that he didn't really win his battle. He missed a year. He did preserve himself, but he got less money than the Steelers originally offered, maybe more guaranteed up front, but that was really, really trivial, certainly a worse deal overall. Antonio Brown got more money, though. He got $30 million more money on top of his deal. They ripped it up and gave him a new deal. So he won his battle with the Steelers, but he's already not showing up to OTAs. There's already problems there. The media's there is already grumbling about Antonio Brown with the Oakland Raiders, soon to be Vegas Raiders. So they're gone. Their locker room cancer is gone, and they're causing problems elsewhere. Or at least inadvertently, even maybe in Bell's case, they're involved in drama and problems elsewhere. But they're gone. So that's over. Now, though, is the focus on how to fix things, how to move forward. And I've done past shows on this too. Because now it is about moving forward, regardless of that drama, regardless who won or lost. Now it doesn't matter. And there's still the little, Terrell Edmonds liking an Instagram comment in favor of AB. There's still the tweets where they're attacking, and that's our lead story right now, but here you go. There's still Anthony Chickillo in response to Mark Cabali of The Athletic, and one of the most veterans media members on the Steelers beat, and asking if he would say this to his face, kind of defending Antonio Brown, who again is gone from the Steelers and did quit on that team, whether they want to admit it or not. And there's other comments that Cabali's dealt with a lot actually recently. He's taken the heat and the brunt for most of us in terms of being called fat boy. And again, I'm going to leave that alone. That's up for Cabali to handle, and he's certainly doing it. But Steelers players are, for lack of a better description, even current members of this team, are certainly triggered. They're still very much able to be triggered off of comments that are even going against Antonio Brown, who's no longer with them. He quit on them. He shamed them. He tarnished them. He trashed them. And maybe not all of them, because some were on his side, and it wasn't necessarily directed at the players as well, even though it certainly was the quarterback and Big Ben, certainly was their leader there, and it certainly was at the management and coaching staff. But regardless, he did quit on them in Week 17, no matter what he said or did not say about them. And yet they're still kind of sensitive and still defending him in a way as a past friend and a former teammate. So none of that needs to really go on, and there's no positive of any of that. There are still Steeler players that just can't handle social media, especially Twitter, and go at it with fans, go at it with media members. And I was blocked by Antonio Brown. I mean, he was certainly the most triggered of them all, especially during their offseason drama. But he's gone again. So now it's putting a lid on what's going on here and trying to calm that storm. And again, SteelersNow.com, we've covered it, we've exhausted it, but this really says it all, this story here, and it's the headline, the focus right now on our website. It's still going to be there no matter when you go to the site, even if it's not the headline story at that time. But Steelers locker room solidifying no-nonsense culture change. The Steelers locker room needs to do this, and I know there's going to be people out there. There's going to be the critics who are going to say, well, that's nice, but Mike Tomlin enabled Antonio Brown. Mike Tomlin didn't put a lid on this when Antonio Brown was doing his Facebook Live after the playoff win years ago before the AFC title game. Mike Tomlin told us, the media, in his press conferences the last few years that if your production is greater than the problem of you, that I'm just not going to worry about it. So it's about production, that if you can produce on the football field, you can kind of get away with anything. You can kind of get away with murder. And gave Antonio Brown, even Le'Veon Bell, from his suspension and his incident with LeGarrette Blount, a relatively short leash that maybe the franchise didn't give to say a Blount or to say it's Antonio Holmes years ago or Plusco Burrs years ago. Others, they kind of maybe clamped down on more, and maybe not. That's up for a debate of another day. But certainly in speaking of AB and Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown especially, there's critics out there, and they're never going to go away, really. And I'm not here to say they're wrong, that Mike Tomlin let the inmates run the asylum. That even Ben Roethlisberger's subtle jabs on his radio show, which apparently he's still going to do based on his interview with Bob Pompiani. And I don't know what anybody expected there. There was nothing else going to come of it. He wasn't going to trash anybody any further. He wasn't going to start any more war of words. He was trying to put a lid on it and move on. That's part of being a leader on this team. So Ben did nothing wrong in that interview, even though some will argue his past transgressions are part of that criticism. And again, maybe valid. He certainly has been immature on his radio show. He certainly has thrown players under the bus when maybe they shouldn't have been. He certainly has been an egomaniac and wanted everything to be about him and wanted to make sure that he gets the attention when he wants it, because he's certainly not somebody that'll just be okay with having no limelight around him. And those criticisms, again, Ben, he certainly wasn't perfect in all of this, and he's addressed it in a way. And Mike Tomlin, who's not really addressed it, again, I agree, he let things get out of hand. He let Antonio Brown and others maybe run amok, and he let things go too far. He lost control. He lost the institution. He let the inmates run the asylum. But now as we stand here, while I don't want to say it doesn't matter, and I don't want to say that those criticisms aren't valid, because they are. Nobody was perfect in their handling of Antonio Brown and their handling of the drama for the Steelers the last few years. Nobody was perfect in terms of the disappointment for the Steelers the last few years and the fact that all that talent didn't make a deep run in the playoffs 2 years ago, losing in the second round to Jacksonville with a bye. An upset loss. Blake Bortles up and down on that field. The defense collapsing there. I was in that press box for that game. And not to say that last year missing the playoffs and those upsets throughout the season weren't asinine and weren't unacceptable with that kind of talent, even with Bell being gone. However, now again to move on. Now it's about moving on. and looking to this next season. And there's still talent there. There's still, I know the Browns had that great offseason with OBJ coming in, but no matter how great OBJ is and that great catch that he had years ago, that was in a loss, by the way. Only one playoff appearance in his career, which was a loss in those 5 years in New York. So his production does not guarantee to equal success for you in the postseason. And Baker Mayfield, it's his second year, had a great rookie season, but now defenses get more looks on him. Defensive coordinators can key on him more. And they have talent on the defensive side of the ball too. But there's question marks there, and this is the most pressure the Browns have ever dealt with, really, since coming back to the NFL, definitely this century, and certainly with this cast of characters who have not been there and have not done it before. So the Steelers and the Bengals are a mess in a new era now with a new coach finally, and the Ravens are still question marks even though they're coming off a playoff berth and division title, and Lamar Jackson, a big question mark around him and if he can do it again now as a full season starting for the Ravens. So that still leaves the Steelers a team that definitely could make the playoffs. That still leaves the Steelers a team that definitely has a chance with that kind of talent, with Juju yet another season, with James Washington maybe stepping up, with Deontay Johnson now in the fold, with Benny Snell in the fold to help James Conner maybe spell him a time or two when he maybe would get hurt, but when healthy, he was a Pro Bowler last year. Steve Nelson now there to help the defense, and Devin Bush. I did a whole show on this, one of the most popular shows I've done on Pittsburgh Sports Live, a part of Steelers now, and Devin Bush becoming the new face of the next Steelers era. It's a great draft pick, and we did our NFL Live show during the draft in which we were surprised at it, and I didn't agree with it initially, but they didn't give up much for him, and it was a great selection by the Steelers in the future, another year of TJ Watt, etc. So there's still talent there, and there's still reason to think the Steelers could make the playoffs next year. But the only thing that would hold them back, and it's what held them back last year regardless of talent, and what held them back to go further in the playoffs 2 years ago, and really is the reason why maybe they haven't won a championship since 2008. They haven't won or they never won a championship with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in the fold. And it's been over a decade since Ben and Mike Tomlin have won a Super Bowl and have been that far and have won a championship. And I know that the Steelers Nation expects more, especially with that kind of talent that they had, and even still. But the graphic that I put up there a second ago, and we'll throw it back to you. Ramon Foster, who's an all-out good guy, I've been around him, and incredibly hilarious on Twitter. The guy is hysterical on Twitter, even the avatar right there. I mean, he's funny on Twitter for sure. Ramon Foster, maybe one of the better Steeler follows out there. Look at the avatar, the Jason mask. That's already in and of itself a reason for me to click follow, and he actually follows me back, so I got to give him dap there, and I got to keep on following him for that, if nothing else. But he doesn't block me. He actually follows me back. So it's the opposite of AB in terms of our interaction on social media. But there it is again. And this tweet started it all in terms of the Steelers leadership turning the corner. And in terms of the Steelers leadership clamping down and taking control of this ship that was just sinking with the damn iceberg. Okay? And it really was already down in the ocean, but they're trying to, haul it back up to water somehow. PSA. Contact me or Marquise Pouncey or anyone else that you feel comfortable with about anything else next time. I passed this through a few guys still in the locker room, and they are okay with this. And what he's alluding to there in the tweet is this, and it's probably small on your screen, but if you go follow him, which you should, Ramon Foster on Twitter, go to his media, you'll get the entire notes section there where he basically gives you that expounded on in terms of he's sick of Ryan Clark on ESPN. He's sick of former Steelers, Emmanuel Sanders, whoever else, even Jeff Reed, who came on my Trib show a year ago, and Jeff Reed on my Trib show with me trashed Antonio Brown kind of in the beginning of all this drama, telling a story on Antonio Brown being immature years prior. And then we know Ryan Clark going at him. We know Ryan Clark talking about Mike Tomlin, even talking about the Steelers culture, subtle jabs at Big Ben. Emmanuel Sanders kind of rolling up the feathers with Antonio Brown before he actually was traded off the Steelers. And then continuous comment after comment. And really, the Steelers became the topic of the day on most national shows. I mean, they were getting ratings off the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially Ryan Clark making a living talking Steelers football. talking about his former teammates, talking about AB, talking about Big Ben, talking about Mike Tomlin, especially, and how they were then, how they are now, his feelings, connecting all the dots. Well, Ramon Foster here, that was a few weeks ago from when this is recorded, kind of the beginning domino here of what those articles on SteelersNow.com kind of allude to. He basically told you that if you have any problems, go to them, go to the Steelers leadership. They put you in contact with them. You get an immediate conversation. You'll get their number and just stop going to the media. Granted, it's probably not going to work because the reason why I don't think Jeff Reed was doing this to me a year ago on my Trib show, because Jeff Reed doesn't have a career really in media. We were giving him his only outlet at that time, so he's not benefiting if that was his goal. But Ryan Clark, Emmanuel Sanders even, they are. Ryan Clark especially, on ESPN, is certainly benefiting from that, from going at the Steelers, from conversation about the Steelers, especially drama-related. And even going here, I mean, this, speak for yourself, FS1, Big Ben, talking about Big Ben and he winning the divorce for Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown got more money, but Big Ben is on a better team, better coaching staff, better surroundings, better situation, better legacy. All true there, but AB wanted his money. That was really all it was about. He got his money, he wanted his money, so AB won for what he wanted. Disagreeing with that a little bit. However, that right there, it's more Steeler conversation on the national circuit. It's the Steeler car wash of sorts. It's the Steeler car wash of national media conversation. And that tweet kind of unraveled things. Because then you saw Cam Hayward jumping in. Then you saw, I thought I had pulled that tweet, but it's out there, Cam Hayward on Twitter. Then you saw Big Ben's comments. You heard his interview with Bob Pompiani from KDK. You heard what he kind of said. Mike Tomlin even, during his media sessions, his brief media sessions. I didn't get much more than a few minutes with him at rookie minicamp, and we thought we were getting much more out of that. But what he did give us, they're trying to put a clamp down on the drama. It might make them maybe less accessible to the media, in a way. Might change how that's going on, but I'm not going to complain on that situation. But they're trying to put a lid on the drama moving forward. And I get the criticism of Mike Tomlin in the past. I get his wrongdoings there. I get him letting it get to this point. I get his indiscretions in terms of his handling of Antonio Brown and letting his talent basically dictate everything when it clearly got out of control and clearly was the wrong way to handle things based on how out of control it got, based on how crazy AB became, and based on eventually trading him and getting what they got for trading him. And they did flip it to eventually become Devin Bush, but still at third and a fifth for that number one overall receiver, and knowing what other receivers in the league went for this past year and seemed certainly like undervalue, but he was insane. He was going crazy on Instagram Live. He was talking about how he didn't want to go to the Bills when that trade was rumored to be official. It was just nuts, and it's all out there too. I covered it well on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Steelers Now. But the here and now, it's about the players. The Ramon Fosters, the Cam Haywards, the veterans who are respected in that locker room that have been there for years, that the media respects, the fans respect, the players there respects. They're not involved in drama. They haven't had conversations about their contract. I'm not saying players shouldn't get as much money as they could and shouldn't do whatever they can to get that money, aside from being a complete lunatic like AB. Do what you got to do, though, I guess. But just the point is, they've towed the company line, and I know Big Ben really hasn't, but taking him out of the equation here, and he still said all the right things. Ramon Foster, Cam Hayward, even Joe Hayden, a veteran who's only been there a couple years, but a veteran who can kind of lead Steven Nelson, who's now a new free agent signing for the Steelers in the secondary. Ryan Shazier, who's been there for years, obviously hasn't played the last couple years, recovering from the incident in Cincinnati and worrying more about his health, but he's still going to be there. He's still going to be part of the fold for another season at least. So he's going to be around. James Conner has been highly touted as being a leader for that team, even though it's a leader over a very young running back group with Benny Snow now there, an average age of only 22 and a half. But from everyone I've talked to, James Conner is already arguably a leader in that locker room. Juju, I haven't heard that yet from, but he's young. He's been there a few years. He's certainly a great player. Going to be the number one for that team and get those double teams. So it's going to have others like, say, a James Washington or the young draft picks having to step up. But still, there are leaders there, especially Cam Hayward and Ramon Foster. I can't speak for them enough. Alejandro Villanueva is another one. He's another one. Veterans, a lot of those guys on the line, defensive and offensive line, just because they're the bruisers and get the respect for doing a lot of the gritty work. They don't get as much of the limelight and the fame either, but they're great players. Whether or not they're as great as they were years ago is immaterial right now, really, for what their job is for the Steeler team. It's as veteran leaders that I think are needed now. I know are needed now more than ever before. The Steelers need the leadership more now than ever before in the post-Antonio Brown, the post-Le'Veon Bell era. Maybe it's the Devin Bush era of Steelers football, as I alluded to on a past show. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's the Juju Smith-Schuster era of Steeler football in terms of the face of the franchise after Big Ben eventually does retire. And he'll be there for a few more years, but he won't be there forever. And the next quarterback, the next guy to take his place, definitely still a question mark. That's likely not on the roster right now, and this team probably will struggle for a few years, and the fans will get, the ones who hate Big Ben, will get to know what it's like on life after Big Ben Roethlisberger. But it's the here and now. This team is still good enough to win a division. This team is still good enough to get back to the playoffs. This team is still good enough to have another deep playoff run. One more maybe for Big Ben and Mike Tomlin. And if that's going to happen, if a chance at another Super Bowl appearance or another Super Bowl championship, another Lombardi trophy is going to happen, and there's still talent to do it, and veterans who want to win now and do it now, it's about the Cam Haywards. It's about the Ramon Fosters. It's about the Alejandro Villanuevas. It's about the Joe Haydens, the Big Ben Roethlisbergers, even James Conner and Juju. The great players, but more importantly, the leaders and veteran elder statesmen of this locker room doing what Ramon Foster did. Marquise Pouncey did. In terms of being, I guess, carried on as part of this. Pouncey's another one. I don't want to not name him. He's certainly a part of this leadership, even though he's had his, issues. That, right there. Those tweets. Cam Hayward, Steelers drama caused by the few, not the many. Whether that's true or not, and yes, the few did absolutely control what went on and dictate the rest of that locker room and kind of sink the ship. They were a cancer for that room in Antonio Brown, and to a lesser degree, because I defended him on how he's handled things after leaving the Steelers, Le'Veon Bell, and I addressed both of them and the differences of their drama in a past show as well. Pittsburgh Sports Live, of course, on the channel. You can find it there under the mic drop section, and SteelersNow.com under our Steelers Talk section. But Cam Hayward, go ahead. Minimize the drama or forget it. Keep it real, however you want to handle that. Move on and talk about how they're gone, the past is the past, and the guys right now in this locker room are going to try to steer this ship and miss the damn iceberg this year and try to go in the right direction and try to have that talent, which is still great and plentiful, and make the playoffs as we should in a still relatively wide-open AFC North and even AFC. And the Patriots, of course, are sitting atop the helm, another Lombardi trophy, another Super Bowl title. But aside from them, there's still a door open. Who knows how much longer the Chargers are going to be able to do this? Who knows how much longer the Chiefs are going to be able to do this? Certain question marks around the Raiders, around Denver, around the Ravens, around even the Jets another year with Sam Darnold. They're still young, though, the Bills. This is a still wide-open conference and a division for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's theirs for the taking. But it is about reining in the drama and the Steelers' leadership being responsible for doing so. And you got to like what you've seen so far. This is in a way kind of complimenting things. But every time there's a Steelers leader, we've even thrown our tweet to promote our articles about what the Steelers leadership is doing. Like, say, for example, when this article was up on SteelersNow.com and we were tweeting to promote this particular article on SteelersNow.com. there were the tweets, the replies about how, well, it should be Mike Tomlin. It's Mike Tomlin's fault. I mean, yeah, that's nice, but Mike Tomlin, he should be the one doing this. Again, I'm not to say he shouldn't be, and it wasn't partly his fault in the past, but now things have got so out of control. The head coach going in there and saying, now this is the iron fist. Now I'm going to rule with an iron fist. Mike Tomlin walking in that room, I'm pounding the table now. Now I'm gonna rule with an iron fist, and I'm gonna be Napoleon in this room, and I'm gonna be tough, and I'm gonna not let anybody get away with anything, and it's gonna be the Tom Coughlin type of style where if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late. I'll be damned, Mike Tomlin. They would laugh at him. It wouldn't work, especially the veterans who had been there a while. They know the Mike Tomlin who let them get away with murder. They know the players' coach, that even when they were winning, because Mike Tomlin has won a lot of games, aside from the championship early on in the second Super Bowl appearance, he's taken them to another AFC title game. He's won a lot of division titles, well above 500 in his overall record. Only the 1 year under 500, mostly in the playoffs, the 5 straight years in the postseason. He's won a lot, and certainly won a lot more than Steelers fans give him credit, and won right underneath, say, a Bill Belichick and a couple other coaches, maybe even right under Bill Belichick for the last decade plus, as the second most successful coach in the National Football League. But it's just too late now. Okay, for Mike Tomlin to change and all of a sudden become Bobby Knight or become Tom Coughlin, it wouldn't work. It is easier, and this is what led to Coughlin's Super Bowl title in 2007, the first of the two for the Giants. And Michael Strahan talks about this often in different interviews and certainly in his biography on NFL Network, that maybe it was his or Coughlin's, but one of them, that Tom Coughlin was such an a-hole, really. He was so hard-nosed that he was able to get softer and then they kind of liked him more. But they still respected him from being so hard-nosed in the past. That was the perfect blend, and it led him to winning the championship. That's easier to do than to go from being really, really soft or a player's coach, even with success like Mike Tomlin's been, to then all of a sudden have that collapse down and have that all of a sudden shift into a 180 to now where you're pounding the table and you're ruling with an iron fist and you're Napoleon for the team. You're Bobby Knight throwing a chair when somebody does something wrong, or you're going to fine people for being 5 minutes, 5 minutes late, or even being on time and say they should have been 5 minutes early. That's not going to work when you've been so easy in the past. They're going to see right through it and laugh you out the door, really. They're going to laugh at you. It's not going to work. So that can't happen now. The past is the past, and that just can't happen now. The onus is on the players to say, okay, regardless of your feelings of Mike Tomlin, and I'm not to say the players don't like him, but regardless of those feelings, by the players, fans, or media, it's up to us now. We have the talent here. He's still getting it done. We have a staff that we believe in, or even if we don't, but we're the players. We can control our own destiny. We can right this ship, and if we play well on the field, it doesn't matter what they're giving us. We can succeed overall, and we've done it before to some degree. Many of them have. Big Ben certainly has. He's won 2 championships. So that example and that style of leadership and those players that are not going to allow a Juju Smith-Schuster to maybe go down the Antonio Brown path. That's been a criticism of his by some in terms of his activity on social media and the fact that he's dancing in the middle of the road during a traffic jam and doing the water balloon fight, which, yes, it helped charity and was great, but he's kind of a me first guy. He wants his publicity. These aren't selfless good deeds. These are about his social media brand, his career after the NFL or even during. It's a part of him overall and his personality as a young social media baby, a millennial. Maybe he's even, a millennial. And really, even to a younger end of that, because I'm a millennial and I'm older than him. But that's all fine and well and good. I'm not here to tell him not to do it. But it could make you wonder if he's not, or even Devin Bush, the suit he wore, the arrogance he had. I was there in a media session at the Steelers facility after he was drafted. He immediately didn't want to be compared to Ryan Shazier. He immediately had a little bit of a war and kind of was a jerk to a media member, a guy sitting right in front of me. And Steelers had to cut him off. I mean, the comm director had to give him the old, hey, we're done here. They didn't want that to be the story, knowing how it could be and knowing maybe his player that's coming into on the team and maybe how that could get out of hand, something they don't want to deal with anymore. So it's making sure those things don't happen. It's making sure Juju does not go down that wrong path. It's making sure that Devin Bush does not go down that wrong path, does not go down the personality path, and stays worrying about football, and it's before his big contract that I'm sure he'll get eventually if he lives up to my expectations, but it's about making sure that he is focused on the game. And maybe the contract not being there yet and his big money not being there yet, the mega deal, will be part of how he'll stay on the up and up. But regardless of his reasoning, it's making sure that happens. And it's Cam Hayward, it's Ramon Foster, it's Alejandro Villanueva, it's Joe Hayden, it's Big Ben Roethlisberger, more so than Mike Tomlin, who certainly can't let things get out of control and just be out of, not in the picture in terms of leadership. But it's those leaders on the team, the players on the team, they're the ones who need to make sure those guys are focused on the number one, on football above all else, above social media, above the personality, above their out-of-football career, really. It's for this season at least, the importance of getting success out of this group, taking advantage of the opportunity there, grabbing the bull by the horns, the brass ring, which is still right out there for you. The leadership on this team needs to make sure that happens, even more so than the coach. And we've covered this again. We'll go through the wire here. Cam Hayward, Alan, with that one there, SteelersNow.com. Here's a lead story right now. It's about the Steelers player. It's about what I'm talking about now in terms of shifting the culture in that room and the responsibility and the onus there to do so being much more on the players than it is on Mike Tomlin, the coach. Regardless of the past, regardless of him being blamed for things in the past and how we got to this point, and not to say that's not valid, and there's not valid criticism there, but it's really about the players now, the leaders of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The onus is on them. The responsibility to shift the culture is on the leadership in that room. It is on the leaders for the Pittsburgh Steelers to provide the culture change, to get them more serious, to make sure they're focused on what they need to be focused on, to make sure there's less drama and that football is the story of next season, and that there is success on the football field and more than there has been the last couple years. And it is up to the Steelers leaders, which is what they're doing recently. They're doing all the right things. But that got to continue to make sure the stars of this team, the younger players, stay on the up and up, do not go down the Antonio Brown path, and all of that, much more, the responsibility of the leadership of the Pittsburgh Steelers players than it is of the coaching staff. And we're about to finish, so of course the iPad has to fall. I don't know if that's a bad omen or what that maybe represents for the future of the Steelers, but probably nothing, because that's just the way things here work on the venture. Once again, I want to remind you to hit up Pittsburgh Sports Live. Make sure to, there you go, click subscribe there on the YouTube channel, making it easier for us to get this content to you, Steeler Nation. There it is. Just type Pittsburgh Sports Live into YouTube. You'll find it. It's easy enough. You can find us on Twitter at PGH Sports Live. You can find myself at Mike Asti 11 on Twitter. There you go. And there's my graphic. And, of course, visit SteelersNow.com. We're still full-fledged off-season. It's a growing entity, kind of my baby here in the Pittsburgh Sports Now family. Make sure, obviously, find PittsburghSportsNow.com, PittsburghHockeyNow.com, PittsburghSoccerNow.com, the whole gamut within the Pittsburgh Sports Now family. Pittsburgh Sports Live, of course, PGHSportsLive.com. There's a website for the content on the channel in which it lives and breathes. And then SteelersNow.com. Finding these Steelers-related shows, any Steelers content from PSL, any of those videos at any of the camps, any of the OTA sessions, any interviews, press conferences with the players or Mike Tomlin, and, of course, any of the articles that a lot of the time give me reason for topic that help create the next edition of Mic Drop presented by Beaver County Auto and the Steelers Now version. So any Steelers Now centrics of Mic Drop, a lot of the time I'm getting, a little sniff. I'm getting a little look at, say, Donnie's article, Alan's article, the Steelers locker room. That kind of led to this piece of radio gold. Regardless, though, you can criticize all you want. You can focus on the past all you want. It's the here and now that's most important, and the Steelers players, the leadership in that room, They need to keep driving the bus in the right direction, steering the ship where it needs to be, and they're responsible for it. Whether they like it or not, they've embraced it, but it doesn't matter what you think of Mike Tomlin. It's on these players now. They got to do it, and we'll see if it keeps up because so far they are.